We made clear throughout negotiations we could not support an unconditional ceasefire that failed to release the hostages.
The ongoing annihilation of the Palestinian people is a major stain on our collective human conscience. Today, the Council had the opportunity to begin erasing that stain by demanding an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire. But despite our best efforts and the almost universal support to go in that direction, the Council was again hamstrung by a veto.
Those against? The result of the voting is as follows: 14 votes in favour, 1 vote against, 0 abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council. I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, the United States deeply regrets this Council finds itself here again. The United States worked for weeks in good faith to avoid this outcome. We made clear throughout negotiations we could not support an unconditional ceasefire that failed to release the hostages. Because, as this Council has previously called for, a durable end to the war must come with the release of the hostages. These two urgent goals are inextricably linked. This resolution abandoned that necessity, and for that reason, the United States could not support it. Simply put, this resolution would have sent a dangerous message to Hamas. There's no need to come back to the negotiating table. Hamas would have seen it as a vindication of its cynical strategy to hope and pray the international community forgets about the fate of more than 100 hostages from more than 20 member states who have been held for 410 days. We must not let that happen, ever. Let me say this clearly. There are still 7 American citizens in the hands of Hamas. We will not forget them. For our part, we will continue to pursue a diplomatic solution that brings peace, security, and freedom to Palestinians in Gaza. The United States, along with partners in the region, has worked tirelessly to achieve such a deal. But we are not there yet. Why? Because Hamas has rejected deal after deal after deal. And yet, some members of this Council, in their public statements, ignore the callous intransigence of Hamas and indeed refuse to condemn Hamas, which I'll note this resolution failed to do, again. Some members of this Council don't seem to want to confront the reality that today, it is not Israel standing in the way of a ceasefire and hostage deal. It is Hamas. Israel has said it is prepared to have a temporary ceasefire in exchange for the release of a few hostages, and then build on that to bring each and every hostage home. Colleagues, the messages we send to the world through these resolutions, they matter. And this resolution had several other problems. Among the most glaring, I've already mentioned the failure to condemn Hamas for its October 7 terrorist attack. It's inexplicable that more than 13 months since that day, some members of this Council are missing the plot, that they refuse to acknowledge it is Hamas that instigated this conflict. It is Hamas that has put millions of Palestinian civilians in harm's way and has brought the region to the precipice of a broader war. Colleagues, we've been clear that it is time for this war to end, for the hostages to be released, and for Palestinian civilians to begin rebuilding their lives. More immediately, the United States has been explicitly clear to Israel that it has a responsibility to facilitate humanitarian access and the delivery of aid at scale. We believe the process of laying out the terms of what we expect from Israel in a very detailed way has generated a change in Israel's approach. American diplomacy will continue to press for more aid in and throughout Gaza, which requires a sustained, expanded implementation of urgent steps to improve conditions on the ground. We regret that the Council could have incorporated compromise language the UK put forward to bridge the existing gaps and support these humanitarian steps. With that language, this resolution should have been adopted, and the Council would have reinforced ongoing diplomatic efforts on the ground. Indeed, we also put forward many formulations over the past few weeks that could have bridged the gaps and seen this Council speak with one voice. Despite these proposals from the United States throughout this process, many on this Council did not engage seriously on their merits and rather continued to seek a path of discord. In fact, we heard that some desired a U.S. veto rather than of a consensus product. That is cynical and unfortunate. Colleagues, this is not how this process should work. Despite the failure of the Council to reach consensus, and again, I think there was a path available to do so, the United States will keep working to improve the humanitarian situation on the ground, which, as we've said before, requires unhindered access and sustained humanitarian aid flowing into Gaza and reaching all those in need. Colleagues, in closing, let me just note that the United States has taken a very clear position since this war began, which is that Israel had a right to defend itself after the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust. The United States also, over the course of the past year, has done more than any other country to take tangible steps to improve the humanitarian conditions in Gaza, even as the situation remains dire. We have also done more than anyone to work with the government of Israel in an effort to minimize civilian harm over the course of the conflict, and we continue to emphasize to Israel that more must be done to save lives. The United States also continued to work with regional partners to support a revitalized Palestinian Authority that can assume responsibility for governing Gaza and the West Bank. We've encouraged regional integration efforts that would strengthen regional stability and marginalize sources of instability. And we've never wavered in our support for a two-state solution. It's vital that we end this war in a way that charts a path forward in the post-conflict period that provides governance, security, and reconstruction in Gaza and restores dignity for civilians caught in the middle of a war they did not want. We must work toward a future where Israelis and Palestinians can live side by side within two democratic states and enjoy equal measures of security, dignity, and freedom, where Israel is secure within its own borders. Colleagues, an unconditional ceasefire with Hamas means this Council accepts Hamas retaining power in Gaza. The United States will never accept this. Rather than adopting a resolution that emboldens Hamas, let's instead demand Hamas implement Resolution 2735 without further condition or delay. Let's continue to ensure Israel facilitates additional humanitarian aid into Gaza. And let's work to bring a durable end to the suffering and misery of Hamas's many victims since October 7. This resolution sent the wrong message to the parties, but our actions and diplomacy on the ground will continue to push them in a more positive direction. We invite others on this Council to join us. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam President. After 5 weeks of intense negotiations and a vote in favor by 14 members of this Council, Guyana deeply regrets that we were unable today to adopt the resolution tabled by the elected member states of this Council to pronounce on the apocalyptic situation in Gaza. The main objective of this draft resolution was to address some of the most critical issues that currently feature in Israel's more than year-long war on Gaza. Those critical issues include the ongoing atrocities of a scale and intensity that caused the death toll to climb on a daily basis and which has now surpassed 43,000. the continued captivity of persons taken from Israel in the brutal attack of 7th of October, and the humanitarian situation that appears to have reached its nadir, but then still worsens in unimaginable ways. The resolution just considered responded to these critical issues, building on the legally binding framework that the Council had established through the 4 previous resolutions adopted since 7th of October. Importantly, this resolution would have gone further by adding several critical dimensions to that framework. Those include, for the first time, an unequivocal call for an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, an affirmation of the centrality of UNRWA's role in the humanitarian response in Gaza, as well as an affirmation that respect for the International Court of Justice and its functions is essential to international law and justice, and to an international order based on the rule of law. Contemplating the end of the war and the mammoth investments that would be required for reconstruction, the resolution sought to make a contribution to day-after planning by requesting the Secretary General to prepare a comprehensive report, which would include a needs assessment for Gaza in the short, medium, and long term. It is deeply disappointing, therefore, that these constructive contributions could not be added to the legally binding framework already in place on the war in Gaza. Madam President, many have said that the ongoing annihilation of the Palestinian people is a major stain on our collective human conscience. Today, the Council had the opportunity to begin erasing that stain by demanding an immediate, unconditional, and permanent ceasefire. But despite our best efforts and the almost universal support to go in that direction, the Council was again hamstrung by a veto. Guyana hopes that the inability of the Council to adopt this resolution will not be seen by those who want to continue this war as a license to continue killing, starving, and maiming innocent civilians. Madam President, the continuation of sheer misery cannot and must not be the fate of Palestinians. Their suffering must end. They need to see the seeds of peace being planted by this Council. They need to see that this Security Council is giving peace a chance. That hope was dashed today, but it has not been eclipsed. Guyana will continue to work with fellow Council members to try to achieve tomorrow what we could not achieve today. Not trying is simply not an option. I thank you.